How could you possibly give up a child that you raised for several months in one case, a few weeks in another case? Didn't it hurt? And my answer was simply, if it did not hurt, I had not done my job. So wanted to say that because that was the most common question. Okay, years ago, long ago, in the ancient land in India, the Nawab called for the Maharaja to come to his palace. He says, I have a job for you. I need to know how high the earth is. I want you to measure the earth from the very top to the very bottom. And I need to know how wide the earth is from this side to that side. And if you don't mind, at nightfall tonight, I need for you to go out and count every star in the sky. Well, the Maharaja said, yes, Your Highness, but I'm afraid those jobs are just impossible. Said the Nawab, no. You must do as I say, or tomorrow morning. So the Maharaja left the palace, shivering in those little gold slippers of his, and he went outside to the palace gate where he began to cry. And at that time, his friend Gopal Bhaur was coming by, and he said, oh, Maharaj, what is the matter? Why are you so sad? He said, oh, the Nawab has asked me to do something that I cannot do, and if I don't do it, oh. And he said, what could it be? I'm sure I can help. So the Maharaj told Gopal Bhaur about how he needed to measure the earth from up here to down there, from here to there, and to count every star in the sky. He said, oh, I can do that. But before I do it, you need to do something for me. Yes, what? You need to name me your official earth measurer and star counter. Of course you are. And then I need for you to go and talk to the Nawab and tell him that your official employee will do the task, but he will need 1 year because it's such a difficult task, and he will need 1 million rupees for, operating expenses. Well, the Maharaj did not want to go to the Nawab and ask for that, but then he knew that if the Gopal Bhaur did not come with the answers, it would be his head that would roll, not the Maharaja. So he did. And the Nawab listened, and he said, well, it is a difficult task. Okay, your official star counter can have 1 year and 1 million rupees. And so it was, Gopal Bhaur went off with his 1 million rupees to do the task. He did the task by going to bazaars and spending the money on jewels for his neck and for his fingers. He did the task by dancing with dancing girls and eating exotic foods, buying exotic clothes. And as the weeks and months went by, he went to all the parts of the region, having the time of his life, and he even bought himself an elephant. At the end of the year, he went to the palace. The Maharaja was waiting for him. Do you have the answers? Do you have the answers? Oh, it was such a difficult task that I've worked hard on it. I have, but you must go to the Nawab and tell him that I am going to need 1 more year. And I'm going to need another 1 million rupees, operating expenses. Well, then Maharaj went back into the palace. He talked to the Nawab and he said, it is a difficult task you've come up with. And the Nawab was quite impressed that he had come up with such a difficult task. And he said, yes, of course. And what do you need? He said, 1 more year. And my star counter will need 1 more million rupees, operating expenses. Of course he can have it. And so it was, Gopal Bhaur had another year. More dancing girls, more jewels up his arms, up his legs. He had more exotic food. He had more exotic clothes, more travels throughout the land. And because he already had an elephant, he bought himself a tiger. Now, it's the last day of that 2nd year. The Maharaja's out at the steps outside the palace, looking up the street, hoping to see Gopal Bhaur. And here Gopal Bhaur comes along. He has with him 5 fat sheep, and he has with him 15 carts filled with tangled and matted and knotted fine silk thread. The Maharaj says, do you have the answers? He goes, yes, it's all right here. Lead me into the palace. And so it was, the Maharaj took Gopal Bhar with the 5 fat sheep and the 15 carts of knotted string and threads into the palace. The Nawab says, do you have the numbers I need? Gopal Bhar said, numbers? Nobody ever mentioned numbers to me, but I have your answer. It's right here. He said, look, in the first 7 carts of this fine gold thread, if you stretch it all out, it will come to the exact amount of the earth from top to bottom. And in the 8 carts behind it, if you straighten out all that fine gold thread, it's exactly the same amount as the distance of the earth from top to bottom, or right to left. I don't remember which one I just said. Who knew one was more than the other? And do you see these 5 sheep? That's what took me so long. I had to go to the Himalayas, the Alps, the Pyrenees, the Andes, and to a little bump on the horizon called Sutter's Butte to get the 5 exact sheep that if you plucked every hair out of each and every one, it would be the exact equal amount of every star in the sky. There is your answer. And before the Nawab could even protest, Gopal Bhar said, and oh, I must tell you, you must be so brilliant to come up with such a difficult task for me to solve. And it was my honor to do so. Well, to hear that the Nawab would say that he was so brilliant, he was just busting those jade buttons off of his fine silk robe. And he said to Gopal Bhar, thank you for doing this for me. This is exactly what I wanted. And as a reward, I am going to give you an additional 1 million gold rupees, but not for the task you've done, but for you to spend in any way you would like. Enjoy. And that is the story of Gopal Bhar and the star counter.
Thank you, Lindarella. Well told. A lovely story. I love our personal tales, and I also love the traditional tales and the classics. And thank you for doing such a good job with that one, Linda. Beautiful. And now, Dave Tarvin, it's time to unmute yourself. We're going to hear from Dave Tarvin. I have a nickname for him too. I call Dave the hardest working guy, the hardest working storyteller I've ever met. I've known Dave for a number of years. He's participated in our Auburn live event when we had it live, and also on Zoom. But the thing I love about Dave is he'll tell you a story. All you have to do is don't talk and don't move for a few minutes, and he'll tell you a story. I've been to all kinds of gatherings, and there was Dave telling the story. I've been to friends' birthday parties, and there was Dave telling the story. So I love the way he loves the art. He loves to share the art of the oral communication, the tradition. And Dave is going to give us a story today called Baptism by Fire. So Dave, take it away.
Thank you. Yeah, so my story is called Baptism by Fire. This is a true story. I used to be a partner in a business, a local business, and we used to run a movie theater. And the story starts like this. It was a Saturday. I always worked Saturday and Sunday. That was part of my deal. And I didn't really want to work this particular Saturday, see, because I was going to have to run the projection booth by myself. I was going to have to run the projectors. I did not have good luck with the projectors. I mean, as the part business owner, I just wanted to sit in the office, sell tickets, sell concessions, that kind of stuff. That's all I wanted to do. We had projectionists, but this guy had called in at the last minute. We didn't have a backup projectionist. And I had been working on learning how to run them. But like I said, I wasn't very good at that kind of stuff. Anything that turns, that has like a rotary motor or a rotary anything, bad things happen to me. In the movies, they go onto this thing called a platter. It's a big, huge plates, and there's 3 of them, and they stack up. They're about 6 foot tall all together. and the film gets put onto one and it goes through a bunch of pulleys. The projector goes back to another and rewinds, and it goes on and on and on. And the first time I did it was a disaster. I went to check the film and it was doing this odd thing. It was coming up like this, like an inverted pyramid. I called the projectionist that was helping me this other day, and he came in, he said, pyramiding, and we fixed it. But then after that, there was a spill. I dumped out 10,000 feet of film on the floor. It took forever to rewind that and fix that. But the biggest thing was I did this thing where I went back to check it, and the film went into what's called a brain wrap. It just somehow twists in the platter, and it turns and it turns and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. It turns into this big ball. And when it did that, I had to shut the whole thing down, and it took 6 hours to fix it. So I was not looking forward to running the projector all by myself this particular Saturday. So I got there early and I checked all the equipment. I checked the film. I checked the platters. I checked the projector. I checked the auditorium. I checked everything. We got ready for the matinee and people start pouring in. I'm selling tickets. We're selling concessions. It was time for the movie. So I ran up the stairs into the projection booth. I turned on all the equipment and the platter starts to turn. The film starts to work its way through all of the pulleys into the projector, and boom, there it is up on the screen. The movie's playing. So I stood there and I watched for a couple of minutes through the window in the projection booth. I was just watching it on the screen. It was going fine. I checked the projector. I walked over to the platter, checked that. I checked the pulleys. And then I walked down the stairs. I was actually feeling pretty confident. I was feeling pretty good about this. It was all going fine. Nothing to worry about. I walked into the auditorium, as was my habit, and I walked down the main aisle right to the center of the auditorium so I could check the sound and check the picture. And the sound was good. The picture was good. Everything was perfect. People were talking, eating popcorn, drinking sodas, eating candy. Everybody was happy. I felt this deep sense of pride, and I was looking at that screen. I thought, that bad luck's over, Dave. It's over. It's over. This is perfect. You did good. And that's when I saw it. That's when it happened. It was just teeny tiny. It was a little teeny tiny spot of light right in the middle of the film. Immediately I thought, oh my God, maybe the projectionist scratched the film, or who knows, things like that happen. But my heart started pounding and I was just mesmerized by that screen, and I watched as that little tiny dot got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And now my heart was pounded. And then all of a sudden, boom, it burst into flame right up onto the screen. I panicked. I said, oh my God. And I turned and I ran out of the theater. I ran through the lobby. I ran up the stairs into the projection booth and I burst into the projection booth. I ran over to the projector. No smoke, no flames. My mind was about ready to burst. I ran over to the platters. Everything was fine. I watched the film going through the pulleys. Everything is fine. I looked out at the screen and there it is. It's on fire. The flames are just all over the place and there's smoke. I'm like, what is going on? I checked the projector in disbelief and there was nothing there. There was no fire. And I looked back out through the window into the auditorium, and all of a sudden, the screen went blank. Just black. I looked at the projector Film's still running. There's nothing going on with it. And then all of a sudden, the screen lit up again. And the scene was a classroom. And in the classroom, the professor comes up to the podium and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, students, but the projector just broke." And then it pans to a scene where there's a projectionist leaning over a projector that's still flaming and smoking all over the place. It was just part of the movie. And it just happened right when I just happened to be standing there. I'd never seen the movie before. Oh, my heart finally quit beating. And I just stood there and I watched a couple of scenes in that movie. And I realized maybe my bad luck is over. Maybe this is baptism by fire. I walked back downstairs to the office. I grabbed my popcorn. I popped the tab on my favorite Pellegrino limonada, took a tall drink, and I thought, finally, everything is good.
Thank you. Thank you, David. That's marvelous. I love how you, it's a great title. It's a great story. Definitely baptism by fire. And oh man, I'm so glad you didn't have to call the fire truck and use the fire extinguisher. I'm glad the story worked out.
I'm glad that film didn't burn up or the projection. That's a lot of expensive equipment.
Yeah.
Man,
Wow.
you have my heart pounding on that one.
Yeah. Copies of those films run like $20,000, $30,000. I mean, good God.
Is that 16 millimeter?
Oh no, I was 32 millimeter.
Okay. That's a lot of film. Well, thank you, David.
Yep.
I'm so glad your story had a happy ending. Thank you for that.
Yep. Me too.
Next up, we have Deborah. Deborah's going to have to help me pronounce her last name. I haven't met Deborah or heard her tell before. She is a friend of our beloved Karen Daly. And Deborah is, she's been in community theater for over 20 years. She's a board member of the Sacramento Area Regional Theater Alliance, and she's a past member of Toastmasters International. And so, welcome, Deborah. Can you pronounce your last name for me, please, before you start?
Yes,
and her
I
story
can.
is called, it's a story about her father. It's how to raise 10 children working 4 days a week. I can't wait to hear that. Take it away.
Thank you. I grew up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and for my whole life, my last name was pronounced Shalub. And I don't know if you are aware that my brother Tony is a rather good celebrity person, but when it was time for him to have his name rearranged, I think is the word, they gave it the Arabic pronunciation of Shalhoub. So I could be either or both or all of the same at the same time. I think I have to thank Karen for this. She's known me my whole life, most of my life. She was my former boss when we both worked, and has encouraged me to come and tell a story about my dad. I'm not sure there is enough time to tell and share with you all of the wonderful memories I have of my dad, but here are some highlights. I'm one of 10 children. My dad and his 4 siblings emigrated to America in 1920. He was 8 years old when he arrived here and was shuffled between several relatives, family members, finally ended up growing up with my mom, our mom. They were actually related. And my mom's dad, Grandpa Joe, was my dad's uncle. So I have many memories of my dad. When I was growing up, he sold sausage and meat products from a wonderful little company out of Wausau, Wisconsin. was called Herziger's Packing Company. And this was in the mid 50s, early 60s. This was when sausage and meat and food products were real. There were no preservatives. There were no chemicals to make the food not real. And my dad actually worked 3.5 days a week. He drove this wonderful big refrigerated truck around the little towns of the middle part of Wisconsin. And his customers were the local store owners and the small meat markets. And 3 days a week, 3.5 days a week, he sold sausage. And how he raised 10 children, providing a house, providing food and clothing and shoes for our giant feet, and being a wonderful husband and a loving dad amazes me to this day. I don't know. I raised one child and I didn't know if I was going to make it. My dad, as he likes to say, or liked to say, only in America could an orphan boy from Syria, which is now Lebanon, grow up to be a self-made, independent meat peddler, to buy and create a home where he and my mom raised 10 children. All of us went off to be renowned actors, directors, lifelong teachers, independent business owners on our own, raising our own children. My dad sold summer sausage and ring bologna and wieners and bratwurst, sort of the staple of Wisconsin diet. And it was what we grew up with. It was how we ate. It was how he provided for us. I don't know how he did 3.5 days a week, but he was always there for us. He was always around. He trained us. He taught us. He pushed us. Some of us handled it a lot better than others. I don't know why I say that, but apparently I was the family troublemaker. And he was wonderfully patient with us. How my mom put up with us, I will never know. But we were fortunate enough to live in a time, late 50s, early 60s, where this could be possible. He could work. He could be with the family. He could share all of his knowledge. He was pretty much a self-made kind of a guy. And he knew and has always told us, family is most important. I remember my favorite memory, one of my favorite memories was listening for that big box truck that would drive through the neighborhood on Thursday noon-ish. And if we were home, we would race to the end of the driveway and jump on the bumper of the big truck, this big refrigerated red truck, and ride it all the way up the driveway, maybe 15 feet or so. And that was our trip to know that Dad was home. He'd jump out of the truck, he'd give us a big hug, he'd give us a big kiss, and then he would tell us to help unload all of the groceries that he brought home for us. I know that several of the shop storekeepers would set aside the sort of bruised fruit or slightly brown vegetables or fruits and vegetables that wouldn't sell in the store. And they would share it with Dad because they knew he was raising 10 wild children. And I can remember having all of that lovely extra food, which we thought was very special, and the sausages and the bologna and the wieners. This is what I grew up on. I have that smell of Herziger sausage in my olfactory DNA. It is what I grew up with. I can remember also knowing that my dad was a people magnet. He gathered friends and he gathered family around him like a blanket. He met a commercial fisherman from northern Wisconsin one year and decided that he would incorporate this man's smoked fish into his selling of the meat. And this man and my dad became lifelong friends. This man would offer my dad, come up to Door County, Wisconsin, which is a great vacation area if you've ever been to the Midwest. And he would rent this little farmhouse way tucked back in the woods to Dad and all of us for $200 for the entire summer. It was such a treat for us to go up to Door County 2 weeks after Christmas. 2 weeks after school ended, we would pack our suitcase of our Herziger sausage box and ride up to Door County and become wild Indians in the summers of Door County, running wild through the woods and swimming every day and meeting all the other vacationers and making lifelong friends with most of those people. We were sort of an anomaly up in Norwegian, Swedish Door County, dark-haired, brown-eyed, wild creatures running around with all the blondes. It's very interesting. Those were my halcyon days. Those were wonderful days to grow up in Door County. Until 2 weeks before school, we'd have to pack our rocks that we gathered all summer. And our dad would take us back to Green Bay, and we would have to go buy our school clothes and our school shoes. And I swear, I still don't know how he did it, working 3.5 days a week, selling sausage. It was pretty amazing. I asked a lot of my siblings to share some of their memories of our dad. And many of them said, you have to tell about how honest Dad was. He was aware of his personality and his power, and he never abused it. He was honest, he was smart, he was drop dead handsome, and he was generous and savvy, and he always used this for good. He was always searching for a better way to live, and we were gifted. We were absolutely gifted with his wisdom and his advice. Some of us took it better than others, but it was there for us to learn from. 70 years later, I finally realized that, damn it, he was right. Everything he told us was right. He would tell us that when he was working, after he retired, when he was working in the late 50s, he was earning $25K a year. And people thought we were wealthy. I never knew that. I'd heard that from one of my siblings.